So the first question centers around this quote from the American Theater Magazine article published recently that features Dr. Tier, Dr. Barbara Ann Tier, who's the founder of this theater company and the mother of Sade Lythcott. So this conversation starts off with this idea of Dr. Tier saying, "I believe the need for a Black cultural art form is far more critical than even the issue of white racism. All Black artists must begin either to build or to support Black theaters in all the Black communities in America, theaters that should be concerned with the truth of our lives." So that's the framework of our conversation for the next 30 minutes. It's thinking about the truth of our lives and thinking about how our theaters in our communities are being responsive, coming to a place of resilience right now. So I'm going to open it up first with Sade. What do you think uplifting communal resilience looks like now in today's society, and how do you think Dr. Tier would feel about this moment and where NBT finds itself?
Well,
big questions.
I know, just a small question to start. I mean, I think the first thing is, one, welcome to my home, literally in my home, which was Dr. Tier's home, which is the home I was raised in. And which has now become my headquarters, right? Because we're all at home, and I hope everyone is safe, and I hope everyone is healthy. And when we say healthy, we really are talking about your well-being. And that's really the check-in around communal resilience, right? It's different for every community, and it starts with the check-in. What are the specific needs that you're having? Not that folks think you should be having, not the candy cutter idea of what you're supposed to be doing or how this is supposed to affect you, but the real specificity of our own needs. And I think that, you know, NBT is in a very interesting time. In some ways, we've been through the fire so many times that when some fire like this happens, we find how much we are fireproof. And I think a part of that comes from this space of defining our art in the context of service. So any production, any program that is curated from NBT's standpoint is a service of love, is a service of healing to our community. Dr. Tier wasn't interested in the kind of Western canon of theater. She was interested in this great experiment of Black liberation that was in service. Our art form was in service to our liberation. And so we find ourselves in BT, and I'm just speaking for myself personally, digging in deeper, planting seeds deeper into this commitment to service for and to Black liberation. And our communities are feeling it. You know, our communities are the most hard hit. And we are also the furthest away from access to, you know, standard practice resources. And so we have to do what we've done for generations and generations and generations, is check in on one another to find communal resilience by specifically creating and serving the needs of where we're at today. And so this is the first conversation to check in with y'all. What do you need? What do you want? What is your spirit speaking to you, and how? And so I think through the 5 weeks of quarantine where my health has been up and down, where the fate of what was going to happen with our institution was up and down and on this roller coaster, we're saying that, you know, as fireproof spirits and as a fireproof institution, how do we create safe and sacred space for each of us to lean in to exactly how we're feeling? Because when we do that, we can actually begin to heal. If you can't feel it, you can't heal it, right? So for me, that's what this conversation and this series about, and we're very excited. And also, I'm about to shut up, I promise.
Don't.
This is our first one, so we were a little late. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, so people are gathering in the dramaturgical lobby exhibit right now. They're grabbing a drink, like they're in, like they're in our actual space, finding their seat and getting cozy. So I hope, apologies for starting late. I hope in the 15 minutes delay that y'all were settling in and getting comfortable and finding something to eat and drink, and now you're with us, because we're going to feel all the feels, and we're going to attempt to help heal all the healing things.
Great way to start it off. That's it. And really thinking about responsive programming, really thinking about what do people need right now and how can we be of service to what they need. Thinking of the original company members of the National Black Theater being referred to as liberators, right? That was their role, their title. And so Jonathan, this next question is for you. I often look to you as a mentor, as somebody who is guiding, leading the way, culture bearer, torch bearer. Tell us, like, how are you processing screen fatigue? How are you processing, I want to say this rush to a new normal, this rush to something that is going to be the new standard and it's going to work for forever and ever. How are you dealing with that? How are you managing? How are you making space? And where do you see this conversation series within all of that?
I think it's first important to pause inside of all of it, right? There's a conversation that has to happen around what does it mean to acknowledge that what we call normal we're never going back. There was never a conversation of going back. There was always a conversation moving forward. And what this virus has done, what this shutdown has done, is made that next step, that quantum leap of what's possible on the other side of this, radically look at what does it mean to actually sit inside of what you're passionate about. Because what has actually started to happen is that everything has been equalized. The great equalizer has potentially happened that can allow for you to have a quantum leap inside of your passion, your dreams, your goals, asking you, what do you actually want to do with this time that you have in your hands? What do you want to do in this time that you have in your hearts, in your mind? What have you been waiting for? What dreams are latent inside of you? And I think for me, this quarantine, this moment of shutdown is a moment of pause and a little bit of just leaning into the idea of listening, being a great witnesser. One of a formative teacher of mine, he wasn't actually a physical teacher, but he is a spiritual / in his written word a teacher, James Baldwin. When he writes down that when I think about him, I think of him as a great witnesser. And what he was able to do was articulate what is happening in front of him in a way in which that gave legacy breath. That gave legacy something for us to be able to look at now and be able to build from. He also gave generations a blueprint of how to navigate the now space. So when I think about that, I think about how did he get into the soup of that matrix? And a little bit for me is that he probably took a moment to pause. I imagine that he took a moment to pause. Because in the pausing, you get to see how the ground is shaking, how the ground is moving. In the pausing, you get to have the conversation with self that you probably had not been having. Something that I've been kind of really sitting with and wrestling with in this moment is the conversation of what noise was I surrounding myself with so I couldn't hear myself? What noise am I in this quote unquote normal space before COVID did I actually surround myself with so I couldn't address that concern or that health concern or that mental concern or that heart concern or that physical concern. And now I'm having to be confronted with it full throttle. So I think that when thinking about the programming and thinking about this opportunity of what does NBT do in this moment? How does NBT present something in this moment? What does programming look like in this moment? I think actually the three of us, because I think it's very much takes a team in order to actually do this kind of work. So between our conversation with Sade, a conversation with you, Chelsea, and listening to the environment, and also just thinking about the programming that we had in place, I was like, what's actually needed is some fresh air. And what does it look like to create fresh air that allows for the Black body to also and the community at large to see themselves wrestle with COVID, but not from a COVID direct space, but from a space of technology that we know, Afrofuturism. Mm-hmm. So we had a program called Gateway Afrofuturism. So what does it mean to allow those artists to speak to the present moment, of how they're creating, how they're responding? What does it mean to have that sacred algorithm of Afrofuturism in today's methodology, knowing that that is potentially something that could help that quantum leap? That is something that could potentially help us to imagine the world or the body or the psyche that we actually want to be in when this is all done. Mm. The next level was thinking about the other programming that we had, which was Can Enable, the resilience of the gift. And thinking about how, and that was dealing with and actually tackling the deaf and disabled community, reimagining some of Beethoven's work. For some people who might not know, this is the 250th commemorative 250th birthday of Beethoven, and Carnegie Hall was doing a citywide festival that had to deal with it. And National Black Theater was partnering with New York Public Library to commission brand new works by disabled artists. And some people might be like, Beethoven, National Black Theater, the two don't mix. But again, through the brilliance and innovation of my tribe, we really thought of what does it look like for National Black Theater to tackle this from a space of illuminating the brilliance that is housed in our disabled and deaf community, allowing them as Black and brown bodies to be seen in a context that looks at their ability as a resilience and as a gift. And how can we have a conversation about it? So, and just to also mark that it is the 30th anniversary of the signing of the Disability Act. So not wanting to let any of that miss, I think that's where the programming really came from. It came from a space of listening. It came from a space of wanting to activate some fresh air inside of a latent conversation around COVID-19. And also came out of the necessity, as Sade said so beautifully, of wanting to figure out a way, what does connectivity look like in this virtual space, in this dissonant space? And how can we create connectivity in our tradition? And as Dr. Tier would always say, welcome to your home away from home. And as we're all in our various different homes, it becomes a conversation of NBT at home.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I love this idea of illuminating the brilliance that is housed within our community, held within our community. And so I just want to uplift that and say, there is a live Facebook chat thread. Use it, ask questions, give us some feedback, some responses around what this is. Something that's really interesting to me about this is like, I've never done this type of thing before. Sade, Jonathan, I mean, is this?
No, this is my first. So okay. I'm happy for it to be my first. Yeah,
it's just, we're in uncharted territory here, and I really am excited about the potential that this conversation series has to open up a dialogue, open up something that can really, and I'm going to be circling back to this idea of a responsive institution, a responsive theater. What does it mean to be there in the moment, capturing what is happening and illuminating that brilliance? Speaking of illuminating brilliance, I want to talk a little bit about the micro commissioning process. Like, there's this thing that we do. There's this process, this journey at, I think, what is it, the last 2-3 years, we've been collaborating to take artists on this journey into the archives of these great libraries and institutions. So I just want to talk a little bit about the micro commissioning process and the artists that we're going to be talking to for the rest of this conversation series. Jonathan, do you want to start us off with just what is a micro commission?
Can I just say one
thing?
Sure.
Go ahead, Sade.
Tackle micro commissions, because I want to be very clear. There's a lot of war language being used right now in terms of COVID-19 and our country. And Jonathan and I and the pedagogy of National Black Theater have always come from the most resilient space of connection and transformation. We are not a transactional institution. We are a transformational institution. However, what I want to acknowledge before we get into like the beauty of our curatorial process is that I know a lot of folks are hurting. I know a lot of the artist community is without homes for outlet. And Jonathan and I feel like we have come on to this live, speaking life into how we see the world, without, I think, properly acknowledging what people are experiencing. And so I just want to say, when we say stuff like COVID is the great equalizer, but we know our communities are being hit the hardest, I think what I just want to drill home before we get into the beauty of it all is that what we're saying to all of us, everyone listening, is that this is an invitation and we have a lot of choice in the way we choose to rise. And this is uncomfortable. The leaning into the discomfort of it all, where our growth and our transformation will happen. We can't do it alone. We must do it in community. And so the invitation is to lean into your own discomfort, and we'll be on the other end of that. And we are proposing art and programming that can happen here live to give inspiration, but we're also depending on you to lean back into us and tell us what you need. So we're going to go on with this beautiful conversation as planned, but I wanted to make sure that that was super clear, that Black folks, when Jonathan says this is about stillness, when Jonathan says that this is about silence, why that's powerful is that our superpower right now is going to be able to listen, how we listen to ourselves, how we listen to what's bombarding us on the television, on the news. Our listening is our superpower. And the remembering, the re-engagement is an invitation we haven't had for maybe since slavery, which is, how do Black folks define their very existence not tied to labor? Right? Because the stillness, at least for me, am I doing enough? Am I transforming enough? Am I meditating enough? Am I the biggest, like all of the expectations?
No, yes, very
and
true.
it's fatigue in our DNA. And so this is an opportunity to redefine what our value proposition is in this country, starting with ourselves and our community first. Who are we if we are not tied to our labor? If we are not the first responders, if we are not essential workers? So much of how we are being qualified and quantified in this census year is based on our labor. And as Black folks, we can't afford for that to be the first principle by which we stand and do. We have to do for ourselves, and it starts with listening. And the stillness and the silence of that, to even know what we are recoding and decoding, is essential. So this is hard. It ain't easy. What we're asking ain't standard, but it is a compass that I promise will lead us through this. So as we jump into Jonathan so brilliantly talking about the pedagogy of how we micro-commission and how we design any of these programs, I just wanted to acknowledge that.
And I just want to,
So crucial.
I want to uplift also a kind of modality in which you and I operate, right? We think of ourselves, because this is a marathon, this is not a sprint race. And that we always utilize this analogy. The tortoise always wins. The hare is always the one that gets exhausted or distracted. And in the moment of stillness, in the moment of taking it slow, the moment people ask me, how am I doing today? And I say, my task today is to claim and reclaim my Black joy. My task for today, and that has been my number one standard thing while after COVID, is to claim and reclaim my Black joy. Because the very nature of my existence right now is it needs the sacred algorithm that kept my ancestors, what I believe my ancestors, afoot and made sure that I could actually show up right here, right now, to talk to you. Joy, the sacred rhythm that allowed for there to be, in spite of all the things, all the different ways in which there were many ways of taking my community down. Joy, in my opinion, is the sacred bubble that kept that element of the divine to be present and for me to show up.
And that grief also is divine. The other side of that, there's divinity on both sides. And I think also, just to big up what you're saying, is the loss and the grief that folks are feeling now, that too is divine. And to honor it as such also is a pathway. Keep going, Jonathan.
Well, I mean, no. I mean, just to go on that some more. I mean, if you think about a beautiful quote is in Adrienne Maree Brown's book, An Emergent Strategy. And inside her book, she helps us to understand that grief is the mechanism that lets you know that you are loved, that you know love, that you are gave the capacity to love, right? And if love, as your mother said, Sade, is the only currency you could take to the bank, if you're able to grieve, if you're able to know the algorithm of grieving, and you're able to turn that into a mechanism of reverberating inside the broken pieces, as Adrienne Maree Brown says, the beauty of your light, the beauty of who you are. What abundance do you hold in your hands? What abundance holds inside your body? What abundance does your life actually show up as? So that this is not a deficit moment, even though there is a lot of things being swarmed at you, even though you're being asked to stay inside of a quarantine location to save other people's lives, even though you are without job right now, possibly, you are without understanding how to create what you normally would create. The possibility is that inside of you is an algorithm that can refract back inside of that grief, refract back so many brilliant ideas. The innovation inside of you is profound. And in this moment, you can have a conversation with that innovator if you choose. It's all choice. That's the magic of this moment also. You can choose to pause, and you can choose to go, and you can choose to think rampantly that you're not good enough, or you're not doing enough. Or you can choose to think of this as a way to turn lemons into lemonade, or you could just choose to eat the lemons. The choice is so radically illuminating in this moment. It's so radically profound in this moment. It's a moment that we have never seen and we haven't seen in our lifetime. And that it will shift and pivot the very nature of our field. What we knew as to be a season won't be a season for many moons to come. What we knew as Broadway will not be Broadway for many moons to come. What we thought was production value will not be production value for many moons to come. And in that moment, in that very breath, in the fact that people are making Zoom plays that are showing up on Facebook, in that innovation, there's an awakening that's happening. And that awakening is allowing for some conversation of evolution to be present. That evolution can allow for us to now maybe communicate in new ways, be able to connect in different ways. This video, this conversation will live on. Our normal way of doing this would have been doing it in our theater, and it wouldn't have been videotaped. It would have been just that one moment, and we would have been done, and it would have been over. So even in this one moment, NBT is innovating how we communicate our passion, our desire, our love for our people, and how our people can rise with us to move the pendulum forward.
We're creating a living archive. This is what's also the most incredible thing. Choose your words, choose your moments. These are living archives. There is no going back. It's only forward. And what Jonathan said was so beautiful and important. And I guess all that I want to add to that is that I forgot what I was gonna say. But really, I mean, I think the key really is here. Is that this is an invitation. And Jonathan just went down all of the things that we get to choose. And I'm going to tell you the one thing we do not get to choose. We do not get to choose fear. We do not get to choose fear, because our survival and our children's survival depend on that. how our ancestors got through everything that they traversed is because they never chose fear. My mother used to always say, where there is love, there is no fear. So we get to be uncertain. We get to feel grief. We get to sometimes feel defeated. We get to feel everything that comes up so that we can heal it. But what we don't get to do is be afraid. We get to lean into the discomfort. We get to call a friend. We get to call a family member. We get to cry on our knees till we can't speak. But what we cannot do is give up and be afraid.
Do you see this, Facebook? Do you see just in
well, do you want me to go back to your question now?
Goes into a micro commission.
You know, I mean, but it's just, it really is a dream come true to just be able to bring people together and hear all of these, and hear these things resonated and reflected back to me personally right now, because I need it, you know, I just need it. I need to hear it. I need to hear somebody look me in the face and say, you do not get the choice to choose fear. That is something that is like, game changer. Okay. We need
and I'll go into micro commissions. I promise, Chelsea will get back.
We have to go to the live chat.
Or we can go in the questions in the live chat. Yeah.
I would just say that a beautiful pastor, Pastor Kendra, gave me one of the best secrets that I knew but didn't know language-wise what was happening. Breath is your first therapist. That breath, the idea of acknowledging the algorithm of your breath. Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it deep? What is happening? Where I'm stuck? Why can't I breathe? The notion of understanding your breath, and especially now with a virus that's attacking the very nature of your ability to breathe, right? The very ability to acknowledge the expansiveness and the very connectivity of your breath is a gift and is your first therapist, your first line of defense, the first thing that gets to let you know what's happening in the body, to cleanse the body, but also to acknowledge the body, right? Acknowledge that the body is storing memory. The body is also accessing memory. The body is also the machine that is making it very present for you to be here connected with us today. So the very notion of acknowledging the vibration of your breath and the space of your breath, that's another tool that you get to occupy. You get to occupy over and over and over again. And I can promise you, the more you acknowledge the space of your breath, the more and more you acknowledge the space of how your breath shows up on this planet, the more and more you will begin to understand how radically unique and blessed you are to be able to house this body and allow this body to consume this much dense air, and allow for that dense air to be matured and changed inside of you. And then that exhale to be considered almost like a gift of all of that light inside of you, to then consume the spaces that you occupy. The spaces that you occupy, be it your living room, be it your bedroom, be it a communal space. The idea of you understanding the algorithm of your breath as an inhale of possibility and an exhale of a gift. It's a possibility because the inhale tells you what's happening. The exhale lets you know you have another breath to go. Oh, micro commissions. So
micro commissions.
So
the technology of soul. That's what you get. That's what you get.
Micro commissions. So NBT, 2 years ago, we wanted to figure out how do we work with more 3 years ago? How do we work with more artists? How do we work with more artists without the stringent of understanding of completion, but how do we ignite? What is the ignition? How do we create like exactly that? Like how do we allow for you to propel forward and give you the resources to understand what propelling might mean so that you can be inspired potentially, if you want to, to go the next step. Or you could say, oh, I'm done. This is it. I don't need to go any further. Let me just, like, I tapped my foot in the water doing this dance piece, but I don't want to do that anymore. Or I tapped my foot in the water doing this music piece. It's actually complete, so I don't need to go any further. Or I don't want to go there any further. Like, all of that, right? And part of those micro commissions, so they're about like 4 to 5 minutes. They're not that long. Sometimes they're 10, but they're really about creating a condensed opportunity for artists to engage in the moment per se, but in a tight moment of, like, what does it mean in a tight frame to create? And so
interrogate.
Oh, I was going to go into that, but you can go ahead.
No, then I'm gonna be quiet.
So part of the micro commissions and building out the micro commissions is creating a call and response. As Sade has said before, as like a part of the interrogation is create a call and response invitation for artists to begin to look at an existing historical, as we have framed it, historical context, be it the ratification of women's right to vote, be it what does migration look like of the Black body, be it
the
Beethoven,
60s.
Be it the 60s. What does it mean to take the historical repository information from that quote unquote time period or that subject matter, provide artists with frame of how to engage with it. So we're just saying, create a 5-minute piece, here's a commission fee, and run, right? Fly with it. And all we're asking is that you just look at the source material. We're not saying it has to be based on the source material. You could go there and go in a rabbit hole around something totally different, or you can go there and stay there and just create something all around the folder that we created. And then from there, we present it for one showing, for a live audience, and then we have a conversation. So it's really an educational component to it, because the conversation is just as important as the actual work itself. Because the conversation really helps us to steep in the pedagogy and historical repository that is housed inside the Black experience. And because of those two things, we get to see how through art, we create dialogue. From dialogue, we create art. From art, we create dialogue, and it becomes a cyclical conversation. How we talk about and how we think about and how we, on some level, we could say expose or just show how creative process is a natural and kind of a symbiotic relationship with dance.
And I just want to add that the idea also of these micro commissions are really from a curatorial space, a reclamation, that we had a deep desire to reclaim our space in history and to insert ourselves in spaces that we've been erased. So just very specifically from a historical standpoint, because Jonathan spoke really beautifully about the components, we began these micro commissions really, well, I should say, the most important thing is NBT has kind of started to pivot towards the development of new work more than just producing already created work, because we understand that our liberation are in stories yet to be written, right? And we want to invest in the spaces that very few people invest in, which is our own innovation and imagination, not something that is a product in which we can pimp or sell on a stage to subscribers, right? So that is our call. That is the blueprint of Dr. Tier. Who are the liberators of today? What are we liberating? It has to come from them. So that's step one, why we do what we do. Step two is this idea of reclamation, right? So this micro commission thing came out of a beautiful partnership that we have with Carnegie Hall that does a citywide festival every year. And every year it's a theme that has nothing to do with us, to be very It's why we say yes, because everything has to do with Black folks all the time. And if you don't know, now you know. So the first invitation was the 60s. So in our micro commissions that we did for Mothers of the Movement, what this trifecta and team came up with was two things. One, looking at the pedagogy of NBT, ritual is important, divinity, sacredness is important. So what is the indigenous foundation of Black culture?
Mm.
You find it in the church. It's the call and response. You find it on the street corner. You find it in the church. You find it in Africa, in all of the different countries. How we communicate is call and response. So we knew the framework of any micro commission. We wanted to tap into that energy and vibration. The next part was, how do we reclaim? Like, when you think of the 60s, what do you think of? Whatever you think of, we're doing the opposite, right? When our season was In Pursuit of Black Joy, it was when the news was screaming at us around all the young brothers and sisters being killed by the cops. We didn't want to reinforce what people know. We wanted to break open what the tools are for us to be able to still feel liberation. So so a part of the micro commission is really breaking open these topics that Carnegie Hall, how it started, was elevating and us dropping real deep into the Blackness of who we are. And so the next season happened to be migration. And so everyone thinks with Black folks, the Great Migration, which was a wonderfully artistic, productive time period for Black folks. But we've been migrating since the moment we were ripped from Africa. So what does that look like? What to interrogate it in the blackest way possible. So when Jonathan was just talking about Can and Able, a micro commission that we were doing this 51st season, Carnegie Hall is celebrating Beethoven. And everyone thought maybe this was a year we would skip. Like, there's Blackness in that too. So we said, we're not going to build pedestals to genres that tend to erase us. What we are going to say is we're in that too. And so with Can and Able, particularly in looking at the micro commissioning, what we saw was, in partnering with New York Public Library of the Performing Arts at Lincoln Center, they have the largest Beethoven archive. And we got a chance to go through his journals during the period of time where he was losing his hearing and his disabilities were becoming more pronounced. And the writing, not the music, not the man, not the culture, of a person, a human being wrestling with their disabilities and turning it into a prayer, a conversation to be called to do more, to be called by a higher power to create in a different realm. And change the game for Western music as we know it. And we have those folks in our community today with disability, with deafness. And so we're always interrogating a point of history in which we have traditionally either been stereotyped or put in a box, and we're saying to artists, this is your opportunity to kick down all those walls and doors, and you can do it in 5 minutes. So anyway, I just wanted to add a little bit more context to the micro commissions from the perspective of NBT's pedagogy.
So good, so good. Okay, I've been taking notes, okay, because I need to remember all of these things.
Jonathan's saying is like.
Okay, so let's head over to the live chat. From Cheryl, we have a question. Has there been any comfort for NBT that has arisen amidst the discomfort? And if so, what? Also, tell us more about your NBT t-shirts.
Sade, do you want to start? You want to talk about the discomfort?
Yeah, I would say that the comfort for us, for me, is really like how resilient our community actually is. I think since COVID hit in particular, the first organizations to be closed were theaters, places that we gather. And in some ways, this protocol around COVID for everyone's safety, staying home is important, really is the antithesis of like our mission, which is to gather folks. Mm-hmm. So one, I would say what we leaned into is like, oh, again, an invitation. This is an invitation to be innovative. And so that's been great, like having an invitation to interrogate the kind of very lock, stock, and barrel way in which you look at business, and also just the community, the creative community, how we're all in this together, and finding new brothers and sisters in ways that we did not know that they were family. Jonathan and I have a daily chat with Anna Glass from Dance Theater of Harlem, and we're both like,
shout out Anna, shout out Anna.
Happy hour, or we are literally plotting and planning how to take like all of the resources from the federal government and make sure Black people are healed, you know? So I think some of the comfort that we have found from this discomfort is finding family in places that we hadn't really connected in this deep of a way before.
I upright all of that. I'll talk about the shirts. So so the swag that both Chelsea and I are wearing, Sade has her whole line. However, the swag that we're wearing are NBT shirts. You can buy them online if you go to nationalblacktheater.org. Again, it's part of our affirmation brand. So NBT, we have, we really are trying to affirm a culture, really trying to infuse a culture with an affirmation of loving yourself, knowing yourself, putting love at the center of the conversation. This is actually a continuation of if people follow us on Instagram, we have a morning affirmation that we kind of lean in and publicize every day to make sure that we are, again, the shirts are a part of making sure we're affirmed. We do morning affirmations to make sure that we're affirmed. Just ways in which us to create labels of dignity, labels of love, labels of clarity, so that the world and the universe that we want to have happen around us, they're attracting the good that we want to have. They're attracting what we need in order to move the pendulum forward. So for me right now,
No, go.
There are some commemorative ones. So there's some gold ones also. So there, the power is in me. We have that one. We also have Get Free. We have Black to the Future, and we have Real Black, Magic, and Human. And for the little ones, we have some toddler stuff. So if you're interested in them, you definitely go on our website to check them out.
And I was just saying, Sans White Gaze. That's affirmations are Sans White Gaze.
Wait, I think that's the name of my memoirs. Sans White Gaze. Thank you. We are at time, which is like,
we can't take one more question.
I mean, maybe. Well, we don't actually. Let's see. Let me check in. No, I actually think that was the question of the evening. I think that was what we got. But there'll be more. This is just the beginning. It's just part one. That live chat will be open every conversation. So if you didn't drop your question tonight, come on back Wednesdays at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time.
And also, like, as people are discovering this or finding it after we are not live anymore, feedback is really helpful, because if this felt like something you want more of, or you got a seed or something from it that you're like, wow, I'm writing that down, or that's a part of my meditation, share that with us too, because now that we figured out how to make this work,
you can't stop us.
We'll be in your living room every night. No, that kind of feedback before Chelsea closes us out is actually really informative, because, you know, sometimes you feel like you're speaking into the abyss of it all. And Lord knows Jonathan, myself, and Chelsea and our team have these conversations on a daily basis. But if you witnessing it, being a witness to it, is a gift in any kind of a way, please let us know, and we'll try to do more of these that are less formal about the art, because Chelsea is about to explain all of the incredible incredible artists that are going to be a part of this series. But if, you know, just hearing more about how NBT is navigating this time, and if there are ways in which we can serve you on this platform and in this way, let us know that too. You don't have to drop the question in. I see that a lot of the questions are about the t-shirts, which is very cool to know. But yeah.
We actually have one last question just to throw this in here. Another person wants to know, what does NBT need?
Aw.
That's so amazing.
That almost made me cry.
I could take a first stab and then you could definitely go for it, Sade. NBT in this moment needs champions and cheerleaders, and I would say I'll give you a Trinity challenge. It's something that I love to just do as just opportunities to really navigate what we need. From my vantage point, and Sade will definitely speak from her vantage point what NBT needs. NBT needs family members who are able to, because you're in our home, we feel like you're in our home. NBT needs family members who are able to radiate out through your social network, who NBT is, what NBT is, gravitating people to NBT during this time period. And that means sign up on our mailing list, signing up on our Instagram, sign up on our Facebook, really becoming to be able to know what we are and who we are and what our programming is, and letting people know in your community that might be interested what we are doing and how we are doing it. I think also NBT, inside of being a cheerleader, inside of being a champion, I think NBT also needs family members who are willing to also give a contribution. An institution, we're a 51-year-old institution led by women of color, founded by women of color, that it becomes very important inside of what this moment is and where investments are actually being given, that NBT becomes a part of that giving structure. We're gonna be able to dream. We can dream a lot of various different things, but the resources there are tangible. And being able to be given those resources in a monetary gift of some sort, whatever you're able to give, I usually say $1, $2, $87 million, whatever you're able to give, it really just helps. It helps to make sure that an institution that is forged for Black liberation is able to continue to do that kind of work, but able to be on the precipice of innovation when it's needed and necessary.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. And such a great question. I mean, just like.
Do you have anything you want to add to what the needs are?
I was going to say, we need you to be whole. We need you to be courageous in how and what you're feeling. And what NBT needs specifically, that's why it's hard, because I'm always going to be like, we need
gushing.
We really, I mean, that's really it. We need y'all to be whole, because what whole people do, what healed people do, is change the world. So what we need is to be change makers. And we can't do it by ourselves. So, but on a practical basis, Jonathan's Trinity Challenge, we need you to fulfill. But also resources, right? What we're learning in this period of time is how to leverage our resources. So I would say what we need is for people to start thinking of themselves as a resource, and then how you can leverage your resource in the service of what it is that we do. If you're a lawyer, if you are if you work at a bank, right? Lots of people are going after PPP and PPP loans, these small business loans from the federal government, and us navigating that really came down to like our relationships, and our relationships were those we found within our community, and we didn't know we had them before this, right? So this is like what we need more than anything is what is your service? What is your divine sacred service? And whatever that is, we need that, because it comes from that space. And so leveraging resources in all those kinds of ways, we will never turn away a smart lawyer, a smart accountant, a smart, like whatever it is, we can turn all things into resources. So I would just say, we need y'all to be whole, and wherever your wholeness is, offer that as service. That's it. I'm really
Yes. I mean, just investing in everyone and everything, and oh, it's just so wonderful. We are at time. My inner stage manager is like, so, but we are at time, and I so appreciate y'all sitting down to chat with me, for investing in me and these ideas, and this conversation series, and just continuing. Nia, who was helping us with the technical aspects. I mean,
go Nia.
just pouring into us, and growing us as resources. So I appreciate that. And thank you to everyone who came out and listened. We will be here Wednesdays at 5:30
real
p.m.
5:30. Real 5:30.
We figured it out. We figured it out.
Hard 5:30. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, next week we'll be talking with Carl Hancock Rux, and our other guest will be Justin Hicks.
Yeah.
So, and we'll be discussing Sun Ra and Afrofuturism. So join us, please hop on that live chat, follow us on IG, follow us on FB, follow us on, go to the website, sign up for the mailing list. I mean, welcome home. Welcome to your home away from home. So this was part 1 of 5. I will catch you next week. Thank you so much. Big love to all of us.